Mona Neely from Colorado's Electric Cooperatives. Welcome to Along Those Lines.
Support for this episode comes from Hubble Utility Solutions, who would like to share that if you're an avid podcast listener, check out their podcast titled Power Pods, one word, from Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, everyone. This is a podcast about electric cooperatives, the work they do, and the challenges they face. I'm your host, Scott Hoffman. October is National Cooperative Month, and in this episode, we're focusing on a facet of cooperative life that really makes them stand out in their communities. All co-op employees help keep the lights on in one way or another, but it's the operations crews that are most often out in the field. And sometimes their work and their commitment to community bring them into situations where they're called on to lend a hand and in some cases even save a life. We'll talk to crews in Tennessee, Missouri, and Mississippi about going beyond the call to help a community member in need. First off, Mountain Electric employees in eastern Tennessee went from working on a routine meter disconnection to saving the life of a woman who was trapped in a flooded creek. Meter tech Molly Engel and line foreman Rick Kortner walk us through what happened. Rick, Molly, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hi.
Okay, so Molly, you sort of started the process on this rescue going. Tell us what happened that day. This was early February. You'd been getting a lot of rain in your territory. Talk about what you were doing that day and how this all started.
So I work in metering. I'm the meter person for our co-op. So I actually went to a house nearby. They had requested their home be disconnected, and they were moving. So I went, and it took me about a minute and a half to do what I needed to do as far as disconnecting the meter, booting it. And I come out of their driveway, and while I was at the house, a tree had fallen into the road. And that's what I saw. I didn't see a truck or anything at that point. And so I called in to 911 dispatch to report that the tree was blocking the road. When I was doing that, a neighbor who lived nearby came out and told me that that tree that had fallen had actually hit a truck off into that river, and you couldn't see it anymore. It was out of sight by that point. So I called dispatch back and told them what happened as far as the truck being trapped in the water. So at that point, I just basically set up my truck, put my strobe lights on, and then I started directing traffic. Me and then two other guys had stopped, moved the tree out of the road, and then I just directed traffic from that point as emergency personnel started to arrive. I couldn't see the scene, so I really didn't know what was going on other than a woman was trapped in her truck in the river. When 911 dispatches to Mountain Electric, it comes over all the radios. So I heard on my radio where 911, the emergency crews were trying to dispatch to our office, but the area that they were in, there's not good cell service and there's not very good radio signal down there. So they were breaking up, and the ladies at our office could not understand what they were asking. They thought that there was an outage or that the tree had fallen and taken out power lines. They weren't aware of the situation at all at that point. So I just used my radio to kind of dispatch to our office that we need a bucket truck down there. And at first they wanted a small bucket. Our larger buckets have a 60-foot range. So once the county had showed up, I went to the scene and I talked to Bit Brown. He was one of the emergency personnel that was kind of running the scene, and he told me to get Rick's crew. He told me specifically he wanted Rick down there because Rick is so experienced with this. So I was able to get cell phone reception where I was, which if you know the area, there's no cell phone reception hardly ever. But I was able to get out to Rick, and I got him on the radio and got him on my cell phone, was able to tell him what the situation was, what they needed to expect when they got there. And him and Cody Bryant and Charlie and Dakota Tester came right away. And then I kind of was in the background of the scene from that point.
So Molly is at the scene. She's making calls on the radio to try and get you guys to come out. Where were you at the time of that call, and how long did it take you to get there? And then sort of set the scene for us when you got there. What were you expecting, and how did it turn out?
Okay, we were at the wirehouse. We had actually been on another outage, and we'd got the power restored in the area we'd have been working, and it was raining. It was heavy rain, so we were back at the wirehouse, and Molly got a hold of me and said that there had been an accident and a truck was in the water, and I still really wasn't aware exactly what was going on until I got there, which probably took me maybe 10 minutes to get there once Molly called. Once I arrived and I met with the investigator at the Sheriff's Department, which is Bit Brown, he was on scene, and once I saw where the truck was at in the water and a lady trapped in it, I got on my radio and called Cody Bryant, which is my bucket truck operator, advised him what we had and just told him to step it up, get there as fast as he could. And once he arrived on scene with his bucket, we were able to back the bucket truck off down through a yard down to the edge of the river, and we had to put the rear of our bucket right in the edge of the water. It had washed her truck, I don't know, maybe 300 yards down the river, and was fortunate it got lodged on a rock out in the middle of the river, and the truck stopped. So in that area where she got stopped in the water was about the only place in that area we could have set our bucket truck up and reached her. Where she was at, we were maxed out anyway. I mean, we were probably still about 3 feet short of what we actually needed to be to reach her as far as making it a easier rescue. But had she been 8 or 10 feet or more up the river or down, I mean, there was no way we could have reached her with our truck. I mean, everything worked perfect in a sense that we were just able to reach her.
Okay. And talk about how you actually extracted the woman from the truck. Did she kind of have to climb out onto the hood and you pulled her up, or did you pull her straight out of the seat?
No, she was sitting in the driver's side under the steering wheel. We were able to get close enough, and as soon as we got close enough, I started talking to her, just asking her name, just making small talk, kind of just try to keep her calm. And I had to coax her out of the truck as far as just talking to her and telling her, look, we got you. You're not going to go anywhere, and we just need you to climb out of the truck onto the door. And finally was able to get her to climb out the window, and she had to stand up on the door with her back to us.
And at any point, did you feel like, okay, we're in some danger here, or were you just pretty much totally focused on the job at hand?
We were just focused on getting her out. I mean, at no time did Cody or myself, we never felt like we were in danger. We were in our bucket. We had our harnesses on. So, had either one of us fallen out of the bucket, we were still harnessed and attached to the bucket. So it was just routine as far as us flying a bucket and just the way we work it all the time. It was just focused on getting her out of the truck and getting her back over to land where rescue personnel could take care of her.
So, Rick, did you just go back to a normal day after this was over, or did you get to take the rest of the day off?
No, it was just a normal day. We didn't really think a whole lot about it. Once the rescue was done, we had to get a wrecker service there to hook our bucket truck and pull it back up the bank into the roadway. And, we just stored all of our gear, got our truck back up the road, and came back to the warehouse, and it was just a routine, normal day after that.
Tell us about what it is that makes up the co-op employee that makes them so good at handling these things.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Everybody is just hard workers. They're dedicated to the community, and when there's a problem, 24 hours a day, we just go out and do our job. To us and other linemen I've met on storm damage, hurricanes or tornadoes, whatever we work, it's just a job and something we enjoy doing, and it's just kind of a way of life for us.
All right. Well, Rick, I appreciate you taking the time, and tell Molly we said thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll hear about what a co-op employee did when he came upon an armored vehicle that had crashed and caught fire. But first, a word from our sponsor.
NRECA's Along Those Lines podcast is supported by Hubble Utility Solutions, presenting this message. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, check out a new show from Hubble Utility Solutions titled Power Pods. Power Pods, one word, delivers compelling stories about the history of electrical products as well as perspectives from industry leaders. To listen, subscribe to Power Pods, one word, from Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm Rachel Johnson from Cherryland Electric Cooperative in Traverse City, Michigan, and you're listening to Along Those Lines.
Welcome back. Southwest Electric Cooperative's Curtis Brown was on his way to the office in Missouri when he came across an unusual scene. An armored truck had crashed on the side of the road, and it was on fire, and the driver and passenger were trapped inside. Curtis joins us to tell the story. Curtis, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
That's no problem.
All right, so set the scene for us. Late May, you're up in Camden County. What were you doing up there? Were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was by myself. I had ran a few appointments that morning, and I'd actually had just taken lunch, and it was approximately 11:15 when I was going down J Road and ended up coming up on the scene of this accident. Okay,
so describe the scene. You come around a bend in the road or something, and you look up and there's this truck against a tree.
Yeah, it wasn't far from an intersection, and just was going down the road, and immediately I seen there was a Ford truck in the middle of the road, and, I had completely stopped, and I seen a lady on the phone kind of panicking, and off to my right. At first, I thought it was like an ambulance. It was like an ambulance-sized vehicle, but I shortly realized it was a bank truck that was armored and whatnot.
Right. And any idea how they ended up off the road? Is it a particularly windy road? Was it a high-speed road?
It's a pretty windy road. There's no shoulders at all on the road, so the road that's there, you've got to stay on it. And I believe they, just overcorrected and ended up off of the road.
Okay, so you get there. There's a woman on the phone calling 911. The truck engine appears to be smoking. What's the first thing you did?
So the first thing I did, I talked with the lady. She let me know she was on the phone with the dispatchers. So I went over to the window and I talked with the passenger, and he immediately had told me that, they were stuck. They couldn't get out. And so I said, okay, I'll be right back. And at this time, I had seen the smoke coming from the engine bay. So I went back to my truck, and I'd called one of my supervisors, knowing that a lot of times, as a co-op, there's a lot of trucks in the area, and I was looking for more help. I was concerned that there was nothing, I could do by myself. So I immediately went to my truck and grabbed my fire extinguisher as well as my hammer. I guess I thought maybe break the window or whatnot, but I went back over there, ran back over to the truck, and I talked with the passenger again, and he confirmed, it was an armored truck, and he's like, you won't be able to break the glass. I said, well, I don't know what else to do for you. I'm going to at least try. So, of course, I had tried unsuccessfully, didn't get in that way. So I tried using the fire extinguisher to extinguish fire, and didn't have no luck at that. It smothered it, a little bit, but my heart just sank, just knowing, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do for these guys, and it's armored. Like, how am I going to get in here?
Was there any smoke in the cab inside the truck where they were?
At that particular point, I'm not sure if they were aware, if they could smell it. I could kind of just see the smoke, and I think they realized once my fire extinguisher was empty, the flames were starting to, be visible from inside the cab. And that's when we decided, okay, we're not getting anywhere on the passenger side. Let's go over to the driver's side.
And where you are at this point, any idea what a typical response from first responders would be? Were you worried that they just weren't going to get there in time and you were going to have to do all this yourself?
Yeah, honestly, that's one reason I had called my supervisor, hoping there was a truck in the area, because it's a rural area, and the chances of them getting there within 15 minutes is probably pretty quick. And we didn't have that much time, of course.
And at that point, you decide, okay, I got to go try something else. You move over to the driver's side. What did you do on that side?
So once I got to the driver's side, they had kind of acknowledged that the door latch is undone, but we can't open the door. So at that time, I was just looking at the door, trying to pull on it, trying to figure out how to get in there. And there was a little lip from after the accident, the door had, of course, got jammed, but there was a lip covering the door where I couldn't open it, couldn't even pry it open. But thankfully, I was able to hit that lip and was able to beat it back and get my claw and my hammer, between the crack of the door. And I was able just to work my way down from the window. I'd work my way down like 3 inches. I'd have to beat on it some more, get, the claw in there and pry a little bit more, beat on it some more, pry. And I just worked my way down. And
you're doing this completely by yourself at this point. Are there bystanders? Are there other people who are trying to help out? Or is it remote enough that you're out there by yourself?
We're by ourselves. All I remember seeing is, this truck. In the corner of my eye, of course, I was trying to help, but I knew if it got too bad, I wasn't going to be able to, do a whole lot if the fire got worse. But in the corner of my eye, the fire was getting bigger. I remember seeing more smoke. I don't remember smelling anything, but more and more smoke was coming. And, of course, they were pushing inside the door trying to help. And thankfully, we were able to get it open.
Any idea how long it took from the time that you got there and started working on it to the time you got that door open?
I don't. If I was to guess, no longer than probably 3 to 4 minutes. It's one of the situations we had to do something now or couldn't do anything at all.
Yeah. And so I've seen the pictures of kind of the aftermath. The truck is basically completely burned out. How long did it take from the time you got them out to the time that thing was fully engulfed in flames?
Once we got out, the flames were getting very noticeable. They were probably about as high as the top of the windshield. And when we got them out, I was trying to encourage them. They were kind of concerned about, their phones and whatnot, their wallet, whatever, inside the vehicle. And I was like, no, we need to get over here. You guys just go over here, sit down, but get away from the vehicle. And I'd say that was just probably a 30, 45 second deal there from the time they got out to the time we got to the road. When we all three were standing there looking back, we couldn't believe the smoke. The smoke and the flames had really taken over the cab at that point.
And what kind of condition were the guys who were trapped in? Were they hurt from the accident? Were they pretty much in good shape and just scared to death?
So I spoke mostly with the passenger. He was completely alert. The driver at the time, he had some bleeding coming from his head, and he was confused on exactly what had happened or where he was at.
The staking technician, you're out in the field pretty much every day. Have you run across anything like this before? Is this the first time you've had to go save somebody?
It's definitely the first time I had to save somebody. There are times I've seen some wrecks that were pretty fresh, pretty recent, but this is the first one that I've showed up on that there was no help at the scene currently.
That's a great story. And I tell you, we get a lot of line crews, operations crews doing these kinds of things. But, as a staking technician, are you guys doing life-saving training the way the other crews do? Did that ever have to kick in?
Yeah, I really think that's a huge part of my instincts. We participate in mostly everything that the linemen, as far as the safety training. We don't do like pull top rescue and things like that, but I have been a lineman in the past. So I've got that kind of mindset, in an accident, you got to work through the steps, figure out what you can do without getting yourself, of course, involved in make the situation worse. But we are trained with the linemen for first aid, CPR.
What is it about you guys that makes you so good at this? It's such a, natural thing to what you do.
We're just part of the community, just like any other person driving down the road. A lot of times the co-ops, it's their home as well, especially in these rural areas. We know, just from our training that first aid may not be readily accessible. You just can't call and have somebody arrive immediately. We're a co-op family, but everybody around here, a lot of these people around here that travel roads, these rural roads, they're family and relatives of everybody that works here at the co-op.
That's great. Well, that's a really good story. I really appreciate your taking the time to share it with us.
Yeah, no problem, and I'm just glad I was able to help.
Finally, we turn to Mississippi for the story of line workers who were on their way to a maintenance job when they spotted a home on fire and ended up saving the older resident who lived there. Line worker Wade O'Brien tells us the story. Welcome to the podcast, Wade. Thanks for coming on. Walk us through what happened that day.
We were headed towards Lexington, Mississippi, just to do routine maintenance, some retirement jobs. And we were going down the highway, and my lead lineman was riding in the pickup with me. And then I had a bucket truck behind me and a digger truck behind it. Anyway, we was going down through there, and we seen smoke coming out of an old wooden house. So I called on the radio and told my bucket truck and digger truck to pull off the side of the road and just hold up. And me and my lead lineman pulled off the side of the road, and we seen an old man coming out of the house. And he could barely walk, stumbling, but he couldn't get out. So me and my lead lineman, Reggie Green, jumped out of the truck, and we ran over there and helped the man get out of the house. And we got him to his daughter's house next door. She came outside, and I told her to call 911 to get the fire department coming.
And then you actually helped put out the fire, right?
Once we got into his daughter's house, we noticed that we could feel heat because her house was probably 30 feet from his house, and we could feel the heat coming from his house burning. We could feel the heat, so we moved him from there to my pickup. He had burns on his hands, on his face. His hair on his face was singed, real bad. So anyway, we got him secured in my truck and got him moved out of the way. When both fire departments showed up, each fire truck had one person because they were volunteer firefighters, So each truck had one person each on the truck. I knew that they couldn't handle it. Once they arrived and I seen that, I jumped on the truck and tried to get hoses off and try to help as much as possible. And once I did that, the rest of my crew just followed in behind me. And at that point, we noticed a butane tank that was probably 10 feet from his house, which was between his house and his daughter's house. And the butane was not cut off because there wasn't anybody there that could go over there and cut it off. So we knew that we had to keep that butane tank cool because it was a big oak tree that was right beside the butane tank also that was leaning over the house. And we knew if that tree ever caught fire and then it sparked on that butane tank, then we could really have problems. So we got everybody out of his daughter's house. We got all them people out. Just in case, it went worse than what it was. By the time the fire department got there and stuff, it really wasn't no saving the house anymore. It was more of keeping the other house from, getting burned, trying to keep the butane tank cool with water and trying to keep that tree watered down the best we could.
Okay, so the house was a total loss, but what ended up happening with the homeowner? How's he doing?
He's doing good. They took him to the hospital that day, and he had burns on his hand and burns on his face. And we did a collection here of clothes and money and stuff like that, because he didn't have anything after that house burned all the way down.
And you happen to be a former volunteer fireman, so this is something that you actually have an interest in, but line workers aren't firefighters. What do you think it is about co-op crews that make them so willing to step up and outside their normal roles when things like this happen?
I just think it's trying to help others. I think that's our main objective through our whole career, probably, is always thinking of others and trying to help others.
I agree, and we really appreciate what you did that day and every day, so thanks so much for joining us. Thanks as well to our sponsor, Hubbell, and to you, our listeners. For more on this and other podcasts, visit us at electric.coop. Until next time, I'm Scott Hoffman.
I'm Sarah Hers from Sheraton Valley Electric Cooperative in Albia, Iowa. Thanks for listening to Along Those Lines. Subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcast app.